Well, today, guys, we are week 2 of our testimonies about the mission trip. And I'm really, really excited. In a few moments, I'm going to ask up a few of these guys on the platform to join me. And I started last week, I said, this is a message about how God works on me through missions. And last week, I shared 4 big insights as to what I sense the Lord doing in my life personally. Jesus commands all of us to go, doesn't he? It's not like, hey, if you feel like it or if you want to or if this is your gift. Now, the going looks different. I think that is what is determined by our spiritual gift mix. But we're all supposed to go. And what is Jesus saying to us? We are to be disciple-making disciples. That's what we are all commanded to do. And after Jesus spent those years with the disciples, that was one of the last things he said to them in Matthew chapter 28, verses 18. He said, now you go into all the nations, teach and preach and baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And his command was to go and make disciples. And that is the cycle that we see repeated generation after generation after generation. And I'm just so excited to be joined with a group of people like yourselves that are intentional in making disciples. That is how we will see God's kingdom continue to grow, lives transformed. So last week I shared 4 insights of how God worked in my life through my willingness to say yes to go, to be a witness. Number 1, I said God, he really encouraged me to let him out of this little box I had put him in. And briefly, that was just God uses and goes through so many things to reach people. He has so many avenues. I said it's like the tributaries of a giant river. It has a destination, but you almost never know which way it's going to go. But ultimately, it's going to end up in the same place. Ultimately, God's love is to do just that, to break into the darkness and for his love to light up our worlds. And when I went to Dominican Republic, I saw yet again other ways that God's love was reaching people. So in essence, getting him out of that box. Through that mission trip, God really, really impressed upon me my need to grow in the area of patience. That was my number 2. And third, shift my perspective yet again on material things. That was year 3 for me, but every year I go back and I'm still just bedazzled by how people can live with such joy, with almost literally nothing in their life. And the 4th thing is that the gospel travels through the lane of relationships. Again, these were 4 things that I shared last week about how God works on me through mission trips. It's been an incredible blessing. And after this past year, or after a few weeks ago, I'm really looking more and more. I'm getting excited about going. And let me just share this with you. It's important for you to tell your story, and it's important for you to broadcast your story. Just this past week, I've been approached by 2 different men about wanting to go on a mission trip with us next year. Now, the significance of this is that not only do these guys never been on a mission trip, these guys don't even regularly attend any church. I don't know that they've ever, I'm pretty confident I can say they've never stepped foot in this church. But because of social media, Facebook for me, a little bit of Instagram, sharing that story, doing those little goofy live videos, letting people see what's going on. These guys wanted to know more, and as I got to talk to them about it and told them what the investment was, which is very, very minimal compared to what a lot of, most people spend more than $1,500 on a vacation. And I told you last week, if you'll just save $3 a day, by this time next year, you'll be ready to roll. So anyway, I talked to them about that, and it's like, man, let me know, because that just looks like something that I would really, really like to get into. So I say that for 2 reasons. Tell your story, and the second reason is, pray. Pray that God would use opportunities like this to bring people. Again, let him out of that little box. A lot of times I would invite people to church. I might invite them to a men's event. I've never even thought about inviting a lost person or a person that's not connected to a mission trip as an opportunity for God to reach them. Wouldn't that be amazing for a person that's not even really, really following God to go and do something like that, and that be like their first big, huge step. So today, we're going to hear from some other people. And the people you're going to hear from today is you're going to hear from my wife, Audrey. I'm going to ask her in a few moments to join me on the platform. You're going to hear a testimony shared by Jessica. She has done a great job of putting together a video for us. And Corey has written a letter So big steps for these guys. Jessica said that it's going to be the longest 2 minutes of her life, sitting back there watching, being here while y'all watch this video. I am so proud of this young lady. And then you're going to hear from my son. I'm going to ask Eli, my older son, to join me on the platform, and Garen as well. This was Garen's first trip, and I'm looking forward to hearing from him and letting you guys hear how the Lord is using this mission trip to be a real move in his life. That being said, Audrey, if you would, go ahead and make your way. Let's have a round of applause for all of our testimony givers this morning. And I'm going to do something that I just absolutely love to do, and I'm just going to sit right here by my wife. All right. There's nobody on the face. I'm sorry? Yeah, we're going to here in just a minute. But, so yeah, this is kind of like practice. This is like round one. This is unrehearsed, raw. So, what is it? Unrehearsed. That's right. Like, but my wife does amazing at this stuff. She just don't yet realize it as much as I do. How about you start off this our discussion this morning, Audrey, with letting us know. Just go ahead and just jump right off in there and let us know a little bit about how this mission trip, how God uses mission trip for you. I got a couple other questions for you. I would like for you to speak into what it's like being a mom, going on a mission trip with some of your children, and for this year, leaving some of your children at home. And then I would also like for you to give me a comparison of how this year and last year kind of pulled together. But just for now, that was my way of preparing you for what's coming. But just for now, anything you'd like to share with us about this mission trip? And after you share that, we'll watch Jessica's video.
I guess starting off, I would say that I backed out. I didn't want to go. If you'll remember, you got a text saying there was an open spot. That was mine. I was trying to get rid of, but nobody took it. So my plane ticket had already been purchased, so I felt like I needed to go ahead and go through with it. But anyway, I'm glad I did. It was tough leaving the younger two kids behind, but thank God for Crystal and Sheila and Sherry that stepped up and took care of them and got Jude over the hump of crying and calling us. That was a big deal. But I guess the main thing, and this kind of happened last year, but more so this year, is just realizing how spoiled we are. You know, some people would say we're more blessed than them, but I don't think we're more blessed. I think we're just more spoiled. And they are very blessed people, and because we're so much more spoiled, we don't have a need for God like they do. So it was really neat seeing, like, I don't know if you know, but at the end of our trip, we leave all of our shoes. I don't even know where that came from, but I guess somebody told us that, you know, they really appreciate some good shoes. And even though ours are not great because we've worked in them all week, but we end up leaving them. And when I went back this year, I saw several of the shoes that we left last year of the people of the church wearing them. And they have cleaned them up really good, and they look brand new. And so it was really neat seeing that. And what you talked about last week about we brought some ball gloves, and just how the kids shared them. Like the one bigger glove, I saw a different kid with it every day because it was just like it belonged to the neighborhood, not one specific child. And that was really cool because you don't see that here at all. And yeah. Gee,
So,
where you at?
Where my big boy at? So whenever, let me speak into this picture. My son is very intelligent, and he figured out how to get on his tablet and download Google Voice, and he could talk to us, text us, and send pictures to let us know how he was feeling. So yeah, we'll talk into this in a minute. But there was some very challenging times for a mom leaving her children at home. How about let's watch the video from Jessica, and then we'll speak into that just a little bit, and then I'll read this letter that Corey wrote.
Hey, also, Pastor Jerry asked me to answer the question, what kind of transformation takes place inside of me when going on a mission trip? Like Pastor Jerry said last Sunday, patience is a major key, and it has been a major key the past 3 mission trips that we've been on. A lot of it is like the work ethics are different down there. You know, you're in a different environment, and it's different situations, and people handle things differently, and you really just have to adapt to like how things are down there. And anyways, so this past mission trip really influenced me to be patient spiritually. One of the days that we were out there working, Miss Bernie had came up to me, and she's one of the women that had been helping us with anything we needed. And she came up to me and she was all like, Jessica, I feel like I need to pray for you. She was like, is there anything going on? And I told her what was going on, and it was crazy because she looked at me and it would look like she was about to cry. She was all like, it's crazy because me and you are literally going through the same exact thing, basically. And after she said that, she prayed for me for about 5 to 10 minutes, which also took a lot of patience. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, okay, so after she got done praying for me, she had told me, she's like, you're going to face temptations in life, and the devil's going to try to come after you, but you have to keep building your relationship with God, and you can't lean on your own understandings, and it's like a work in progress trying to build your relationship with God. And whenever she said work in progress, and after I figured out what the question was that we had to answer for this Sunday, I put 2 and 2 together, and I got spiritual patience out of it. And ever since I put 2 and 2 together, it has really just been showing me, like, throughout the day how I need to handle things differently. And anyways, I just want to encourage y'all that if y'all want to go on a mission trip, that you need to do it. And it not only can change the people's lives that we're going out there to build stuff for and to mission to, but it can also change your life too. So. Hey, also, Pastor Jerry asked me to...
Let's give Jesse a round of applause. Spiritual patience. Just so pumped about this young lady again. And I've said this before, I want to say it again. I really, really see the Lord's hand on your life, Jessica. And watching the way she connects with those children down there, it's phenomenal. So thank you for taking the time. How many times you say you had to take some videos? About 200 times?
She said she would pass out if she had to get up here, so that's why she did the video.
So that's a big step for her. She shared some pictures here. This is actually the picture I think Corey wanted you guys to see. Audrey, who are these kids here?
The smaller one is Jaden, and the older one is Journey.
All right. And it's Jaden is, that's Proby's sister's,
Right.
Petra's daughter.
And Journey is Bernie's daughter.
Bernie and Belkis. Bernie, which one's the pastor?
Belkis is the pastor.
Okay.
Bernie was the one that would translate for us. She knew more
Right.
English than any of the other ones.
Right. And it was Bernie that prayed with you. Jessica even texted me back after she sent the video. She said, hey, do you think I need to edit that part out about the prayer? Because I said, no, I think you need to leave it in there because that's reality. You know, because watch this. How many of you guys, sometimes when you ask somebody to pray for you, if they pray for you for 10 minutes, you're thinking, man, I wasn't asking for that. Okay, so you're in a good place, Jesse. You know, sometimes I remember my buddy Gabe Nelson, whenever we were fixing to eat, and he asked somebody to pray. He said, now look, we just asked you to bless the food. If you ain't prayed all day, this ain't the time to make up for lost time. Now, we just asked you to bless the food. We're ready to eat. Sometimes you get that, but it does. It was really good. We have a few more pictures that some that Jessica shared. Some people that are really, really near and dear to us. A couple more, I think. That's Benjamin behind Shelby there, and there may be one more picture there. That's it? Okay. Let me read to you guys what Corey, now this again is Corey's first time going on a mission trip. And this is what he says. Good morning, Sunnyside. Here's my testimony about my first mission trip. I was kind of nervous about going out of the country because we had to fly and I've never flown before. So after the first flight from New Orleans to Florida, it wasn't near as bad as I thought. I actually liked it. Now, he was having some issues with his ears hurting and stuff like that, so I'm glad to hear that he still enjoyed that part of the journey. It says, after we got to the hotel in the Dominican Republic, the church came to the hotel, played songs, and greeted us so well. I was really amazed how they were so happy to see us. They made me feel so welcome. Man, they're great at that. It's crazy how they can be so happy but have it so hard. God is really moving down there through them. I did not realize how spoiled we are in the United States. We have it so easy. What really opened my eyes is the love and the patience they have. It made me learn to be more patient and to just slow down in life and just appreciate what all I have. I really, truly enjoyed the trip, and I will definitely be back next year. So I'll tell you guys, it just blesses me because as a father, as a leader, as a pastor, to hear someone say that it made me learn to be more patient and slow down in life and appreciate what I have, I just think that is like, man, mission accomplished. Amen. So these again are some of the things that you can expect to experience from going on a mission trip. All right, my boy Eli, if you would make your way on up here, and let's have you share with us, with the congregation, how the Lord used this mission trip. Let's give it up for Eli. I'll give you the stool here, son. Boy, there you go. So yeah, I figured that was going to be what you was going to try to do. So what we're going to do, we're going to lift up this beautiful face. We're going to make eye contact with everybody. Hey, you're doing pretty good, yeah. So a speaker once said, if you're having trouble being able to speak, just imagine everybody out there is naked. I don't get that. That don't help me, but that actually kind of messes with my head. I don't want to do that. But anyway, fire on it, man. Share with us how the Lord is using this trip. What's he bringing about in you, man? Got to hold that mic close.
Well, first of all, happy Father's Day to all y'all.
What
And
is that? Good deal. Good call.
And I don't know. I mean, I just.
Audrey said, just breathe. Look at Big Daddy. Right?
I was just gonna say like how they appreciate the little bitty that they got. Like they literally live on top of each other, and we get mad because our air conditioner's out and stuff. And yeah, kind of lost thought.
Would you rather snap it to us?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that makes it particularly challenging for guys of your generation is the way y'all communicate. Because when I was your age, I would actually have to call somebody. Well, at least that was like the least engaging conversation we could have. It was by phone call. And now you can do texting, you can do Snapchat, all these other social media ports. So never even have to open your mouth. That's right. So anything else, Eli, that you'd like to share with us? You went last year. You went this year. Anything else on the terms of how God is, what's God stirring in you, man, as a result of this mission trip?
Well, this year was a whole lot better because last year, I guess they just like took advantage of our big group and it was like work. And but this year was a lot better because we got to like chill every now and then and connect with all the people or try and connect. It's a little barrier because of the language and everything, but all them people down there, they really, really try to connect. Like, you'd be surprised of how many people know a little bit of English and how many people know Spanish here. It's weird, and yeah.
All right. One more thing before you leave. And get a selfie with you up here while we're on the platform together. Right here. He never looks. All right, give it up for Eli. Thank you, son. All right, so that's what it looks like when you're nervous and you don't like talking. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Let's have Garen join us for a moment. All right. Garen's first time on a mission trip. Garen's first time flying.
First time talking in front of a church.
First time talking in front of a church. Maybe not the last time. Howdy, y'all. All right, Gary, let's just dive right in, man. Tell me about this mission trip and how the Lord's used it for you, man.
Well, I guess if you're looking to do new things and get involved and try something new in the church, that this right here will be a good step forward. And let me prop my heels up right here. All right, for me, I haven't even gotten baptized yet, and I'm kindly working on a footstool for my spiritual needs or my spiritual life. And a mission trip, it takes you out and it gets you to do new things and try new things, figure out what you like, what you don't like, what you need, what you don't need, and you kind of just get to know where you're at and go from there basically. So yeah, like I said, a footstool.
So when we were talking earlier this week, you shared something with me about your feelings on going out of country. You want to share with the congregation there kind of what your heart is on that?
Well, tell me what you said last night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I actually even before we went on the trip, I kindly was about like Miss Audrey wanting to back out. I don't have any kids here, so that's not why I didn't want to back out. But I don't know. I was actually getting my passport like 6 months ago, feels like. Anyways, it was probably on like 3 or 4, but I was getting my passport, and I was like, man, this thing's like $200. I was like, I could go get gas or something with this. That'd be a lot better. And anyways, but even whenever we was on the trip, I started to enjoy it. It started as soon as we left Mr. Jerry's driveway. Went to New Orleans and got to see a lot of weird people, and it was something else just in New Orleans. But anyways, whenever we were on the mission trip and we got back, and like I got to see the whole entire thing how it was. I kind of got to like thinking about it as a whole, like since I experienced the whole thing, it was done and said and over with. And I was noticing that, I don't know, I just really didn't want to go out of the country anymore. I didn't like getting outside of my comfort zone. I don't know. I'm kind of dude that, like, if I can keep from it, I don't even want to leave the county that I live in. So, anyways. And then Mr. Jerry actually said last Sunday that we're spoiled and we have all of our needs, and we have, like, AC, all these things, and we work on our own time, and we do our own thing, and we're spoiled. So I guess that's the only thing I could come up with is that I was spoiled.
So those of you that don't hang out with this guy, you need to, because this is one thing I love about Gary. He really don't make pretensions. He's okay with you disagreeing with the way he feels, and that's what he told me last night. He's like, well, when I was listening to what you said and all, he said, I've kind of come to the conclusion I don't want to ever leave my country again, and I'm okay with just being spoiled, And that's what I love about this guy. He's like raw. So some of us would kind of put on airs about that. We'd try to put on a costume and say, well, I probably should be a little different. But I want to mention this to you about this guy. He is very actively pursuing his next step in his journey, as he shared with you earlier. And he also has committed to going with us on the 6th and 7th grade camp to serve as a youth counselor. And he told me, he said, man, that's stepping out of my comfort zone. And the reason it is, I don't mind saying this about you, Gary, in front of everybody here, he is so far ahead as far as in his physical maturity and his emotional and his maturity, however you say that, for his age, that he really don't really g-haul with kids that well. He does great with them. My kids absolutely love him, but he's more along the lines of emotionally speaking, he's more along the lines of an older man because of his life's experiences. So for him to just be willing to dive back in and deal with a whole bunch of 6th and 7th graders says a whole lot about you, man. So I know that God's going to honor that and is going to continue bringing about in you your next step and growing you closer to him, man. Any closing words or anything for us, Gary?
Like I said, I'm trying to lay down that footstool and I'm trying new things. So I don't like kids, but I'm fixing to give this counseling thing a try. So I don't know. I mean, you gotta give everything a try. I mean, I hated onions, or the thought of onions, I guess. But then whenever I finally ate them, you can give me a whole onion and I'll just tear into it like an apple. So,
All right, thank
thank
y'all.
y'all.
Yeah. He said a lot more nervous when I got up here than I thought I was going to be. Yeah. My wife don't know anything about that. But, this is yours. You want to tell them that? What'd you just say?
I said Garen's lucky to have made it back to the States alive, because there were some people ready to choke him out.
You want to elaborate on that?
Jesse, you want to help me out here?
Here's the thing. The thing that you grow to most love about Garen is the thing that after a period of time, it's like, okay, that was fun, but now I'm tired and I'm wore out and I'm ready for you to be tired and wore out too. But he just don't get that way, so he just keeps going, kind of like the Energizer Bunny, and laughter is like fuel for him. So you can imagine the impression that he left on the people down there in Dominican Republic. It was neat watching him, because he never gained the concept that these people can't understand you. So he would just talk to them, just like he talks to you and I, like the bus driver, and anybody. And he's like, and like whenever they would look at him kind of puzzled, he would just say it again louder, because that's why they didn't understand. So I just love how raw it was and how real it was, and just really, really excited about how God's going to continue stepping these things out. So I'm hoping that you'll have an onion-like experience with youth camp. And the reason I hope that is because when we come back here, we're going to do Vacation Bible School about a week after that, and then we're going to launch our Wednesday night Vacation Bible School type experiences, where we're going to continue busing people in here. And I hope that God just develops in you, Garen, a real passion for these children, because we're going to need all the help we can get. And somebody like you would be a kingdom builder for sure. I've asked my wife to stay up here. And I want to just close this part of our time, Audrey, if there was something that you could speak into about the difference between last year's trip and this year's trip. Because we have a lot of people here that went on the trip year before this one in 2018. And Garen kind of mentioned Eli mentioned a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as all of you know that went last year, it was a lot of work last year. And I don't know all the reasons, other than it was the biggest group that they had ever sent. And I think they felt pressure to accomplish so much more than what they usually do. I'm not sure, but anyway, I guess they listened to, I know you had several talks with them, and they just kind of backed way off of the work and the production part this time. And just like we were able to go to a baseball field and play baseball with the kids, not just one day, but like two days. And we actually got to watch some of their high school age kids play a real baseball game, which was something to see, bringing you back to how spoiled you are. If you don't think you're spoiled, you're in denial, because you are. We are all very spoiled. We pout when we don't get our way. Even as adults, we pout. It's just crazy.
So how would you encourage people to maybe give it another shot? There may be someone out here today that was kind of like I was, because after 2018, I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that again. So there may be somebody else out there that can relate to that.
Well, and also there's still challenges. When you stay in a hotel in a different country, it's not like the hotels here. And stuff like prostitution and sex trafficking is not
Regulated.
It's not regulated at all. So it's going on all around you. So it's a challenge to stay there. I felt safer at the work site than I did at our hotel room. But I would say it's worth it. The connections that were made in the neighborhood. Like, we still have people that are not even a part of the church, but because we connected with them, they're sending us Facebook messages and stuff throughout the day, just random people in the community, and there's still a language barrier, but thank God for Google Translate. So, I think we accomplished much more as far as building the church instead of just building the building.
Well said. Well said. Good job. We got a few more minutes here, and today being Father's Day, I'm gonna just hang out with me, because without you I wouldn't be one. On July the 5th, there's some interesting history on the what we now observe as Father's Day, and it actually started because of women. How many of you ladies know that it's good to have good fathers around? And for years, even in generations through the 19th century, 20th century, it seemed to be kind of an unwinding of that, more of an emphasis placed on the role of the mother. Mother's Day was established long before we ever celebrated what we now celebrate as Father's Day. So I thought it was interesting as I went back and studied a little bit of the history of Father's Day and discovered that it actually come about because of women. In 1908, a lady in Fairmont, West Virginia, because of a tragedy, a coal mining disaster happened where 361 men were killed. 250 of those men were fathers, which left nearly 1,000 children without a father in just one disaster. And this woman, her name was Grace Clayton. Imagine that. She asked her pastor, it started in a church, asked her pastor if he would share a sermon and talk about these fathers, kind of speak into the role of the father and really kind of celebrate the lives of these fathers that have been lost. And then Sonora Dodd, a few years later in Spokane, Washington, she began to campaign for churches to, on one Sunday a year, to preach sermons just about the role of the father. But it wasn't until 1957 by another woman, one of our first women senators. Her name was Margaret Smith. In 1957, she had the first Father's Day proposal submitted. And then in 1966, President Johnson sent out a proclamation that we would begin observing Father's Day. It wasn't until 6 years after that, a year before I was born, in 1972, that it was set aside as a permanent holiday. President Nixon was the one that signed that into law. So we want to say Happy Father's Day to all the dads, the fathers, and we also want to thank the women that brought that about. My wife shared an interesting picture here with me that, and there's a scripture that kind of goes along with this. It said this statue, if we could zoom back in, it says, this statue of the son was made with pieces removed from the statue of the father, representing the parents and what they go through in their lives to build the lives of their children. And here's a picture of what it looks like. There's holes in the father, and then in the child is made complete by what the father's willing to give up. So there's a whole lot to be said about that. So I thought, what is, if I could just share one resource with you guys today on something that I believe would be a benefit for you to help you be a great dad. Just one. Sometimes we have too much to choose from. Just log in to Focus on the Family, Dr. James Dotson. He's been doing this for years and years. And if you just log in or go online, Focus on the Family. That's all you have to type in, Focus on the Family. You're going to get a plethora, an incredible amount of resources there. And it is not only gender specific, but it is age specific. If you are a father that is in a season of trying to raise children, you can punch in. They have different categories for what kind of child, as far as the gender, what age they are, stuff like that will really help you tremendously, very practical. So just along the lines of the importance of a dad, it says now there is evidence more and more today of just how important we dads are. And let me just be real clear to you. The reason I want to point these things out is because I believe that we should honor our fathers in this world. I recently met with a couple of my pastor friends, and I was intrigued to find that one of them said, my wife told me something the other day. This is a pastor friend of mine. He said his wife said, you know, on Mother's Day, you just celebrate and you honor the mothers, but on Father's Day, man, you just beat them up. And I thought about, you know, that a lot of times that is, unfortunately, that's kind of what happens. You know, it's kind of like the preachers just like take a chance to take stabs at just how many times we as dads are failing and point out what we need to be doing different and all that. And can I just tell you that does not motivate me? But what does motivate me is a person that says, look, man, I want to help you. You know, I know that you're in this season of life where you're trying your best. I asked a man years ago, and that man happens to be sitting right here on this front row, my brother Bill Harrell. I asked him years ago when me and Audrey found out we were going to have our first child. I said, man, I am so nervous about being a daddy. What can you tell me? And I'll never forget. He said, oh, man, it's simple. Just love your kids. And while that does kind of cover everything, you know, sometimes we need some practical help and things like that, and it's good to be in part of community. We as dads, we are important. I want to read to you that a couple of things that's pointed out. And again, this comes off Focus of the Family. 82% of studies on father involvement and child well-being published since 1980 found that there is significant associations between positive father involvement and offspring well-being. Simply put, layman's terms, how involved we are as fathers often, if not every time, determines how well our children are doing. An analysis of over 100 different studies on parent-child relationships was found that having a loving and nurturing father was as important for a child's happiness, well-being, and social and academic success as having a loving and nurturing mother. And some studies even now indicate that the love of the father is a stronger contributor to some of the most important positive child well-being outcomes. According to psychiatrist Kyle Pruitt, fathers more actively the way that fathers actively play with their children and comparatively slower response to a toddler or infant experiencing frustration. In other words, the way we as fathers interact and treat our children, it says it serves to promote problem-solving competencies and independence in the child. So you want your dad to play with your children. You want your dad to interact with your children. And when your kids do something wrong, you want a father in their life to respond to that child the way that fathers respond. In the words of Dr. Pruitt, positive father care is associated with more pro-social and positive moral behavior in boys and girls. This is born out of research done from all sorts of universities, and this is what they say, that children who feel a closeness and a warmth with their fathers, they are twice as likely to enter college. They are 75% less likely to have a child in their teen years. They are 80% less likely to be incarcerated and 1/2 as likely to show signs of depression. Lastly, in a 26-year-long study, researchers found that the number one factor in developing empathy in children, this was a shocker for me, the number one factor in developing empathy in children was father involvement. Fathers spending regular time alone with their children translated into children who became compassionate adults. Dads, we are important. We have an incredible responsibility on our shoulders. So I'm encouraged as through the scriptures in Mark chapter 10, verse 42 through 45, Jesus lays out for us what fatherhood looks like. True fatherhood. There's no greater example than Jesus himself. It says that Jesus called the guys together and he said, you know that the rulers of this world, they lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them, but among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man, that's Jesus, he came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Being a Christ-like father, that's what it looks like, is to serve. It's to serve in your family. It's to serve as men. We are called to serve in our marriage. We're called to serve in our parenting. Things that come natural for most of us is to be the provider, the protector, the warrior. But I thought of it like this past week when I was preparing for this message. Sometimes you need, as a man, you need to bow up. You know, and that term comes from like an oxen pulling a plow. Whenever they would get to a rough spot, they would bow, they would tense, really flex the muscles in their neck and they would push on that yoke and they would bow up. There's times as men that we need to bow up, but that same word, B-O-W, is also pronounced bow in a different area. And sometimes that's the most challenging thing for us as men. There's times when we need to bow up, but we will never accomplish the work set before us as fathers if we're not quick to bow down, to bow down and spend time with our Heavenly Father. And the parallels between God our Father and our relationship with Him provides for us a template of how we are to be good fathers. I thought of it like this. The things that God calls us to do, God calls us to pray. What is prayer? Prayer is just talking with God. We, as fathers, can do sometimes the most influential thing in the lives of our children just by talking to them, letting them know. So you have prayer. You have, in our relationship with God, we study the Word. What is that like? Well, we as fathers are to be the model for integrity. We as fathers are to instruct our children. We are to lead them in the ways of the Lord. And I thought about meditation. And maybe this will be more of a challenge for you like it is me. When we meditate, what are we doing? We're listening. About a year ago, Audrey, when were we on that pastor's retreat over there with Wayne and Paula? The guy there that was with us, he shared, what was his name, the guy from Texas? Steve was the one leading it, but it was the other guy from Texas, D. He shared with me some insights that I believe has been probably one of the best all-out applications anyone's ever said to me, and I want to pass it on to you, especially since my oldest daughter, Hannah's not here right now. But he said this to me, that there was a man in his church who had been fathering his children, and he said that he just got to noticing that through those last years of high school and those first years of college, where a lot of our children really go the way of the world, a lot of them kind of fall flat on their face, a lot of them they go through some of the most strenuous times of their life. He said he noticed that this guy's children, that was the season of life, they just blossomed. They just began to really just come alive. And he said he finally went to him, he's like, dude, what's the secret? He said, what do you mean? He said, what's the secret to raising children the way that your children are turning out? And he said, man, all I can tell you is that a wise man gave me some advice one time. I'm going to pass it on to you. He said, when my children got to that season of life, he said, I gave them one day a week where we would spend time one-on-one. He said, that might look like a breakfast or lunch or a dinner. He said, but we set it out every week. He said, I would sit and I would talk and I would listen and I would pray with my children. And that for me was something I could do. So sometimes it's hard as a father to figure out, hey, how do I really take a step in the right direction? And so that's what I did with Hannah. Whenever she got through with her junior year in school, I told her, I said, from this point forward, you got me one-on-one. You're second to your mama on my schedule, and we're going to do whatever we can do for this whole next year to spend time together. So I'm sharing that with you dads, that at the end of the day, there's one thing that we can all give to our children, and it's something that no one can take away, and it's just like what it takes in our relationship with our Heavenly Father, and that is our presence, our time. You see, everything you'll ever hear from me preaching, everything you'll ever hear from Brother Josh and lead worship, everything you'll hear from Pastor Paul as he ministers to you, it will always boil down to the same thing. You will only always be as strong as your prayer life. It'll always come down to that. And your relationship with your children, your success as a father, I submit to you today that it will probably be a direct relation to how much time you are willing and able to commit to them. Don't let them get so hung up on the presents that you offer them, but on the presents that you give them. Not the presents under the tree, but the presents sitting across the table. I want to pray for all our fathers today. And then we have a presentation by our children to celebrate this day with you.
A godly father is faithful to God and family,
able to discern God's will in trying times,
thankful for all joys and trials of life,
happy no matter what circumstance, enthusiastic about a life lived with purpose, righteous, rock solid in heart and mind from a growing relationship with Jesus. For these things and so many more, we praise God for our fathers this Father's Day and always.